Oh, this is what SuperCoach can do to you. Give you some absolute highs and, unfortunately for me, some big lows. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video from A Man Talks NRL SuperCoach. Today we're going through the roundup number 7, summarizing all the games from round 7 and what a round it was. So many highs and so many lows. I think there's some big scores coming out there. Really, the captain choices really swung a lot of people in the right direction, and unfortunately for me, it swung me in the wrong direction. But I think there'll be a lot of people feeling my pain as well. But again, we move on. We can't do anything about it, and let's move forward. But guys, if you are new around here, would really appreciate a thumbs up on the video, and do please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, as I continue to put out more videos. We've got, like the roundups where I summarize every round, but also some ones on team lists and trades, etc. So if you guys do like that, really would appreciate hitting that subscribe button. But let's get into the video. So in terms of how my team is performing, I thought I'd give a quick overview. Currently I'm sitting on 1,144 before any final updates, which is obviously a bit of a low score. The big problem for me was captaining Tedesco, obviously, and he got that early HIA, so only got the 20 total points from him, which really killed the score. We were actually looking pretty good. I couldn't say in hindsight, I should have gone with someone else, but really I was set on him for the rest of the week, so I only can blame myself. The next best option I would have gone for was probably Cleary, and he got 96, so that would have been a bit of an 80-point swing if I had captained him, so I would have been sitting around that low 1200s, which I would have been pretty happy with, obviously. But 1150 or 1145, sorry, captaining Tedesco, I'm not, obviously it's not the best, but it's a decent score in my own head, given that was a big downside. So it shows that my team's still in a decent shape, so I'm not too overly concerned. But let's get into the game. So first game of the round saw the Penrith Panthers taking on the Newcastle Knights, and the scoreline, in my opinion, doesn't really reflect, I think, what the actual game and how it was played out. Panthers won this 24-6, but it really was a pretty gritty game, and I thought the Knights put in a pretty gutsy performance. At least in that first half, it was very close, but I think the Panthers just kind of outclassed them towards the end, and they got a few easy tries towards the back end of the game that kind of, I think, makes that scoreline look a little bit more flattering in their favour. But on the Panther side, the usual suspects, I guess. Brian To'o's 2-0 good. Bad puns. He got 89, he got that late try, but I think I tweeted at the time he had about 49 points in SuperCoach just from runs. No tackles, no tackle breaks, no tries, nothing. Just literally in runs. Like, the guy is a crazy workhorse. So he's absolutely looking like the best centre wing to get this season. I don't have to talk about him anymore, I think. Not sure yet if he'll play Origin, but if he doesn't, that's better for us in SuperCoach, because the Panthers do play that round 13 bye week, so definitely someone you want to be locking into your team as soon as possible. And Nathan Cleary, again, just kind of being the unicorn that he is, he just seems to get points when it doesn't even look like he does that much in the game. He has got that benefit of the goal kicking. I think the game actually awarded him a line break, which he got towards the end of the first half. So he just racks up points in these small little ways, and there's no he's averaging 99 for a reason. So he's always looking like a safe vice captain or captain. If you do captain in this round, that's a very good score. I put the vice captain on him, and my captain's on Tedesco. So yeah, Cleary again just doing what he usually does. Jerome Luai again had a bit of a steady game, getting the 65. Surprising, actually. I thought he was quieter in last week's game, but he got 80 something. Obviously he only got one try assist in this game, but again, very happy to have him in the team. And Matt Burton only got a 56, but he did score a try as well, and he looks really just like a natural footballer. Scored that great try, runs great lines, so as long as he's playing there, I've got confidence in Luai to keep feeding him try assists. Everyone else was pretty steady. Capel 51, Isaiah actually had a good game, getting 81. Capel 51, there's no attacking stats in this game, so at 51 at centre wing, I'll take that any other day of the week. What I won't take is Charlie Staines 25. I kept him out of the 17. Look, the 25 is a step up from his 11s and 15s, but again, without any attacking stats, he just doesn't have the work rate to kind of get a very comfortable floor. So I'm really only going to play him on matchups. Whether or not I trade him, I'm not sure yet. He could just be a hold until the round 13 bye week, but if there's an opportunity to potentially upgrade him to a big gun like a Lomax, then I'll probably do that move. On the Knights side, as I said, very gritty performance for them, but they were just outclassed. I thought Kurt Mann had a really good game, actually. Probably was their best player, and that actually reflected in SuperCoach. He scored 78. Jaden Brayley just kind of does what he always does, being a bit of a tackle bot. So 68 points from him, very steady. Bradman Best, actually, I noted 65 points without any real attacking stats. I know he had that one break down the left, I think it was in the midway through the first half, but apart from that, he looked pretty quiet. So actually, these are the kind of guys that you want in SuperCoach. They don't look like they're doing much, but they just seem to rack up points. 65 points from him when his team only scored 6 is a very, very encouraging sign. The next 2 games are still kind of tough for the Knights. They've got the Roosters and the Raiders, although the Raiders aren't looking the best at the moment. But then the 3 games after those 2 are looking very favourable for the Knights. So definitely Bradman Best is someone I'm looking to pick up soon. And Mitch Barnett, again, no attack, that's 58, pretty steady. Ponga obviously would have been a really popular player this round as well with the news about Ryan Papenhuyzen. I don't think there's any reason to panic over him, scoring 58 when his team was camped at their own end. He was barely able to get ground to run out of his own end, but even when he had some opportunities, he looked quite good. He was able to break tackles. He did help set up that line break that I mentioned for Bradman Best down the left side. So again, no concerns over him, and I think the Roosters and the Raiders will be much more favourable opposition, albeit maybe still difficult, but better than the Panthers. And last play I wanted to kind of touch on was probably Connor Watson. Only the 53, which is pretty steady from him. Again, some odd rotation though. He played most of the first half, and he came back on for his second stint, and he only played 6 minutes and was pulled off again. Now, I followed on Twitter. It seems like there was no injury concerns out of the Knights at all, so it was just purely maybe just would have been tactical, but it was very odd to see that. So maybe we'll get some extra news about why he was pulled pretty early, but that definitely did cap his scoring because he was on a pretty good score at halftime. Clemens Safidi, not the best games from them. They haven't, they had a big couple of first rounds of the season, but since then, I haven't really done too well. And you'd expect potentially Safidi and maybe Clemmer might be involved in Origin, so I don't really necessarily think I'm going to be picking up these guys anytime soon. So the first game on the Friday was an absolute belter. The Titans taking on the Rabbitohs, and yes, that is the scoreline. Titans 30 to Rabbitohs 40. It was anyone who watched this game, it was all about Dave Fifita in the first half. 153 points, and he scored about 135 of them in the first half. He scored the hat trick. He's looking like you can just permanently captain him at Seabus Stadium. I think that's now 7 or 8 tries in his games there. I think because he's got 2 hat tricks and he scored a double there. So he's just a try scoring machine when he plays at Seabus. But yeah, again, just looking like the best second row forward to get this season. I think he's got everything working in his favour and that his base and power is very solid. The attack is definitely going aimed towards him, but he's just on another level in his tackle breaking, something I didn't really notice in the past couple of years. Just that second try that he scored, he bumped off 8 players, I think, and he literally just tapped on his foot and just ran for the try line and was like, get out of my way. It was like under-8 stuff, basically. So, yeah, very happy that I brought him in that week. A few weeks ago, at the time, I remember I was looking about maybe getting in Cody Walker instead of Fifita. Very, very happy I went with Fifita, basically. That's really helped my season to this point. Other notable performances from the Titans side were Corey Thompson, Tyrone Peachey, and Brian Kelly. I think kind of a couple of weeks back I mentioned that these are the 3 centres that a lot of people were looking at, given that the Titans do play in the round 13 bye week, and they've been looking pretty decent, but that was also the week before that had that pretty bad game against Manly, but still this game against a pretty quality side in Rabbitohs were able to score quite a few points. So very encouraging signs there. Thompson getting 110, he looked very, very active with all those tackle breaks, a few line breaks, and Tyrone Peachey again, he scored a try of his own. Kelly, the 64, is pretty solid. He had a hand, I think, in one try, but didn't get a try of his own. But yeah, 64, you'll take that from your centre wing any day of the week. And a good game from Brimson as well with an 80, but really I don't think too many people are going to be looking at Brimson at this stage. Apart from that, I think those are the main kind of guys to talk about at the Titans. Obviously no Tino, but I don't really think, to be honest, didn't seem like they missed him. I think Fodawaker had a really strong game, scored 65. So I think he's a very handy replacement for them at front row forward. So yeah, Fifita is obviously just the main guy to get at the Titans, and he's very, very expensive now, but it just looks like you just have to get him into your team and you'll sleep a little bit better. But what a game it was from the Rabbitohs as well in the second half to come back. It was really amazing to watch that. And Benji Marshall obviously was the star of the show, showing that he's still got it and probably making the Titans, sorry, not the Titans, he did make the Titans look like a fool, but also the Tigers, letting him go. I think obviously it helps that he's got good players around him, but again, showing that at 36, he's still got the trickery, and that little flick pass at Alex Johnson just was like 2005 throwback, right? So yeah, very, very strong game from him. Alex Johnson as well, speaking of him, 94, very good from him. And Cam Murray with an 86, he's rewarded anyone who did hold him for that long of a period. Scored 100 last week and an 86, so he's definitely looking like he's picking up the points now. And again, pretty steady from everyone else, like your Cody Walker and your Reynolds, Campbell Graham, Dan Gagai, all in around the 60, low 70s, so pretty solid game from them. Damien Cook, though, is the Damien Cook's a notable kind of guy who didn't do so well. 52 points, and his stocks are like crumbling in my opinion. I think there's so many factors going against him at the moment. Even when the Rabbitohs put on 40 points, I've noticed he just runs out of his own end, but then he'll pass it just before he gets to the the opposition. So the run meters won't really get there for him in terms of SuperCoach points, and the attack just doesn't really seem to be flowing through him. I think the Rabbitohs are definitely attacking more on the edge as opposed to the middle. He does have a couple of games where, obviously, like against the Broncos, I think he scored that 100 plus, but he's just not doing it consistently enough, I think, to warrant selection at the moment. He will play State of Origin. Rabbitohs don't even play the round 13 bye week, so really, I don't know when I'd be looking to get him in. It definitely wouldn't be until after Origin, but, with the way that Reid Marnie, Harry Grant, even guys like Brayley and stuff are going, I don't see any reason why I'd be going for Damien Cook at this stage. So the second game on the Friday was the Eels taking on the Broncos up in Darwin. Eels taking this one out very comfortably, 46-6. Now, I wasn't quite expecting that big of a scoreline, given that the Broncos aimed up pretty well against the Eels in round 1, but again, that was a long time ago, and I think, I probably thought that the Broncos, after that performance last week, would put a better showing, but the Eels were just too good for them, and, playing up in Darwin, the conditions were really, really hot, really humid. You could see all the players within 2 minutes were sweat dripping off them, so probably just made it a bit easier for the attacking guys to get some tackle breaks. Star of the show for the Eels was Mike Acevo. I feel like he does this, once or twice a season. I remember I had him last season when he scored 4 tries and he got 150, and he's got 157 in this game, scoring 3 tries. I think he had 4, 5 line breaks, something crazy like that. It was just the star of the show. It's just I saw a few people actually captain him, which is a ballsy move, and obviously that's paid off huge for them. So congrats to anyone who's done that. Obviously, there's no way I would have considered that, but yeah, really strong performance from him. Clint Gutherson getting 124. I'm really happy that I brought him in this week. I'm actually recording this on the Saturday before the Manly Tigers game, so we'll see how Turbo goes, but at the moment I'm happy with my decision to bring in Gutherson. Look, Turbo can get 150, and obviously I'd be like, I should have got Turbo, but 124 from Gutherson, I'll happily take that. Had a hand in a few of Sivo's tries, and he scored that junk time try at the end, which was quite amazing too. So yeah, very happy that I brought him in, and coming up against the Bulldogs this week, hopefully that does mean more points for him in the next few rounds as well. And Cartwright, 120 points. It's the Cardi party. He scored a try, had a hand in another one as well. But really, I don't know who's going to be jumping on him at the moment. He scored 5 last week, so it's a tale of 2 stories, right? But yeah, good game from him. And Papali'i, he just can't stop scoring tries. He scored another one against the Broncos, getting an 83. Obviously not quite as big of a score as we saw in those other games, because I think he was taken off, and I think he only played 55 to 60 minutes. I'll have to double check that, but it probably was the conditions maybe played a factor in that. It was probably really tough for the forwards out there. So 83, obviously you would happily take that if you brought him in, and again, he's looking to go up even more in value, and really I think is becoming unattainable in terms of his price. Mitch Moses, 79. He actually had a really good game in the actual NRL, but good for SuperCoach as well with 79. But really, I don't know who's going to be going for him. You're not going to antipod Nathan Cleary, and I think Sam Walker's set as your cheapie halfback. So not really looking at Moses for the moment, unless you want to maybe take a punt through that Origin period. But yeah, good sign from him. And Blake Ferguson, 75 without even scoring a try is a massive game. You'd really like that. Really like to see that as an owner. Obviously, I don't have him, but 75 without scoring a try is a really big effort. And Reid Marnie, only the 60. I think it was some controversy. We might see further updates to this. I'm not sure, but he didn't get, I think, even a try assist or a try contribution. I can't remember who it was. Was it Cartwright? Or was it Papali'i? I think it might have been Papali'i. He didn't get any kind of attacking stats for contributing to that. So a bit of update points controversy over there, but still 60, it's not shabby, but obviously with Marnie, I think you'd probably be hoping for a little bit more. On the negative side for the Eels, Junior Paulo, only the 41. He just doesn't seem to be offloading that much. His minutes have been a bit fluctuating, and he's not really, getting to the line as much as I would have seen that we basically what we saw in the first 2 rounds of the season. He was offloading a lot. He obviously scored a couple of tries, but he's just really dipped. Unfortunately for SuperCoach as well, I would expect that he will play it in State of Origin. So even though the Eels do play it in round 13 bye week, I don't think he is actually. So yeah, he's going to be tanking in price. So it is a difficult decision whether you would hold or sell at this point in time. Fortunately, I don't own him, but yeah, he's tanking so much in value that if you sell, you really would be copying a big cash loss. On the Broncos side, Tavita Pangai Jr. was one guy I was really looking to bring in this week, scoring 100 points. I didn't get him, unfortunately. I went with Nofaluma instead. But again, this is the kind of thing I spoke about in that front row forward section. Tavita Pangai is really great if you want that high upside. You know, we saw in that game, he obviously scored the try from dummy half. He throws a lot of offloads. I think he got about 20 points, something like that, from effective and ineffective offloads. Add in his tackle breaking, you know, his base I think in this was about 45 to 50. I want to say, which is obviously it's steady, you know, for an edge back row, but we know that he's got that attacking threat, which really does give him these high scores. Definitely someone I'm looking to bring in sometime soon. The Broncos do play in round 13 bye week. I'm not sure if he's going to be up for State of Origin, but if he doesn't play, then he's a great pickup during that period of time. And Payne Haas, again, just showing why he's probably the number one front row forward, you know, in terms of consistency. This is the first game that we saw kind of get above the 70 point mark, and this is the kind of stuff that we can expect from him. You got a line break thrown into this game as well, so yeah, Haas, there's no bad time to ever bring him in. I think the sooner that you can lock him into your team, the better. Apart from that, no other real good performances from the Broncos. You know, Matt Lodge with a 50, not bad given his price, so you know you should see some good value increase there. But really, apart from that, I don't think anyone else is going to be looking seriously at the Broncos at the moment. You know, you've got Jermaine Asako only at 25, David Mead 28. I think the draw for the Broncos actually does improve in the next few weeks. I think they're coming up against the Titans, and I think they've finished with that really tough part of their schedule. So if these guys do start to go down in price, you might be able to pick them up because they will be handy around the round 13 period. But at the moment, I don't really think, like, at least myself, won't be going there. So the first game on the Saturday was the Sharks taking on the Bulldogs, and the Bulldogs getting on the board, getting their first win of the season, taking this one out 18 points to 12. I'm not a doggy supporter, but it was nice to actually see them get a win. I think it was 219 days since they'd got one. It was round 19 of last year, so happy for them that they finally got that monkey off their back and won't go winless in 2021. In terms of the Bulldogs players to note, I think Luke Thompson was one player I did mention as potentially a decent pickup, and he came in with probably what you would kind of expect from him, a 65-point effort, mostly all in base, you know, so pretty decent game from him. Just doesn't really, he did score that try in his first game back this year, but usually will hover around this 60 to 65, which at his price is very decent outing. The only thing I'd mention is that potentially when Josh Jackson comes back, we might see his points dip a little bit, and Hetherington, but Hetherington will be out for quite a few weeks, so I don't think he's any concern about Luke Thompson. He'll hover around that 60 to 65 for you moving forward. Corey Waddell played 80 minutes at lock, actually, scoring 67 points, so he could be maybe potential pod if you want to go with him. The Bulldogs don't play in round 13 bye, so that is one thing to note for these players, that they're not really going to be useful in the next, you know, as we get closer to that period of time. But they're the guys that you might want to pick up, you know, sometime after that round 13 period. But really, I think there's so many. This is the fact that they got to win is a rarity, and we can see that the points don't usually come for them, so I don't really think there's too much interest. I think I've mentioned Waddell because he had a pretty decent game, and Luke Thompson pretty solid, but apart from that, you know, even the guys that were preseason had a lot of hype, like Jake Averillo, maybe a Carl Flanagan, only the 42 and the 40 from them, so really not big games at all. On the Sharks side, I think Jesse Raymond has shown to be a pretty decent kind of mid-range centre wing pod option, scoring 70 points. He's been ticking along pretty nicely, so he could be a handy pickup as well if you're looking for a pod in your centre wing and you don't have the budget to quite get up to like your Nofalumas or your Lomaxes, etc. Around that mid 450s, you can go for like a Jesse Raymond, a Jack Bird, a Ruben Garrick, all kind of guys I think you can go for, and Raymond's shown that he's been a pretty decent pod at that position and at that price point. And Teague Wilton, 65 points, you know, he's again just delivering. He's got a tremendous base. Really kind of filthy at myself that I didn't actually pick him up. You know, he's done super well. He's made quite a bit of money, and he's actually delivering quite a bit in the points as well, so he's a very handy player in your 17. I think it's a bit too late to jump on him if you're looking for a cash generation purposes, but he's still delivering the points pretty decently. And I guess the talking point out of this will be for Sifa Talakai, that hit he did. You know, there was some controversy about it, like whether, you know, he should have been sin binned or whether his punishment should have been more like a send off. But I would expect there's potentially some kind of, you know, suspension coming his way, so he might miss a few weeks, which does help the stocks of Teague Wilton. You know, his place in the back row will be a little bit more secure now moving forward if Talakai does get that kind of suspension on the sidelines. And Sean Johnson, he made his comeback as well, getting a 32. So hopefully a few more of these games, as if, you know, kind of feeling his way back into the game. Hopefully just means his price will continue to drop and we can pick him up after round 13, because the Sharks do also miss that round 13 bye week, and hopefully he's on the cheap and we can get him in then. But yeah, really no kind of spark from him, which to be honest I was expecting. His first came back from a pretty serious injury. I would be completely shocked if he came back with a bang. So just ticking along and feeling his way into the game is good for SuperCoach in terms of picking up on the cheap in the next few weeks. So the second game on the Saturday was the Cowboys taking on the Raiders, and again another comeback victory in the round. Cowboys taking the comeback in this one, 26-24 against the Raiders. That's 3 games in a row now that the Cowboys have won, which is really good performance from them. Cowboys fans will be really happy with that. And the Raiders, really the first half they looked like they'd kind of turned a corner after last week's performance, but conceding that many points, I think it was 24-6 at halftime. So conceding 20 points, really not what you'd expect out of the Raiders. Val Holmes really, I think, was instrumental to the Cowboys win. He was, getting line breaks in the goal kicking. He was setting up tries as well. So he had a big game. 97 points in terms of SuperCoach, and he's now had 3 really good games in point scoring wise. And he's had a couple of good games prior to that too. So he's really looking like he's a serious top 4, top 5 centering contender. The next month for the Cowboys isn't too bad. I believe they've got the Broncos, Roosters, I want to say Warriors and someone else, I can't quite remember, but the matchups aren't too bad. Roosters is a bit of a tough game, but there might be a couple of good games in there where the Cowboys can still score points, and Val Holmes would be a great addition to the team at that point in time. The only downside, I guess, is that the Cowboys don't play in round 13 bye week, and Val Holmes will probably play in Origin too, so he won't be really useful over that period because he'll be probably missing a couple of games, but still a very decent pickup, and his floor has been pretty good given that he's playing at fullback now and he's got that goal kicking. So very good person to have into your centre wing, and someone I'll look to bring in some point during the season. Haven't quite decided maybe when's the best time to do it. It might be maybe a post Origin move, but he's looking really good at the moment. Ben Condon again, 56 points, scored another try, so that hopefully does kickstart some more cash rises out of him. He's hopefully got maybe like 1 or 2 more. We'll just have to keep an eye on the break even, but he's definitely done his job in terms of making cash. He's going to be making over 100,000, which is kind of what you'd expect, hopefully as a bit of a minimum from these cash cows. So really good output from him. Obviously there's a bit of concern about him when everyone was buying him, given we didn't quite know his role and his base isn't that good, and it wasn't again in this particular game, but scoring a try, whatever, we'll take those points. I didn't play him this week, but obviously that would have helped, given that instead I played Ryan James, who only scored 33 points. Again, the forward rotation at the Raiders is crazy. There's so many forwards competing for minutes over there. We saw Hudson Young actually benched prior to the game, even though he was named in the starting lineup. It's really hard to call which kind of Raiders forward you can reliably trust on in your team. So I think just kind of remove the headache and just don't go for them all together. Ryan Sutton had a pretty good game again, scoring 65, so very solid if you did get him, but my concerns over the Raiders forwards is pretty big, so I don't know if I'll be looking to pick up any of them anytime soon. Tom Starling had a really good game at a dummy half, scoring 74 points, setting up a couple of tries, and Jordan Rapana got a double, so that really bumped up his score to 106, so a good pod if anyone has got him in there. Not someone I'm really considering. I think he can be a bit inconsistent for my liking, but again, 106 points, good score from him. But yeah, really apart from that, at the Raiders, I'm not really looking at too many other players at the moment. I think Ryan James, my thing with him is that we'll monitor the break even, but he definitely can be cashed out, I think, sometime soon. He'll kind of score around this 35 to 40, but he does have potential upside for scoring tries, which we saw in the first couple of weeks of the season, and I was hoping for that in this game against the Cowboys, but didn't quite happen. But now you've got Harry O'Neill, Corey Horsburgh kind of back in the mix. Joseph Tarpany got dropped in this game, and Soliola wasn't in the 17, but we know that they're floating around. Throw in like Ryan Sutton, Hudson Young, Emre Gula, who started this game and actually scored a try himself to get an 84. The forwards are just stacked over there, so I really don't think I'm going to be considering them too much. And Ryan James, I think I'll cash out soon enough, maybe to like a Josh Curran or a Sean Bloor if he comes back into the frame sometime soon. So the first game on Anzac Sunday was the Tigers taking on the Manly Sea Eagles, and Sea Eagles absolutely crushed the Tigers, 40 points to 6. Tigers actually scored the first try of this game to Luciano Leilua, who I thought was probably their main threat. Like he's probably the most destructive player that they've got at the Tigers, but I don't feel like they use him enough. all eyes were on Tommy Turbo, I think, for this match, and he passed with flying colours. He was absolutely running the show, scoring a massive 117, and fortunately for me as a non-owner, and probably for owners actually as well, Des Hasler actually took him off with about, I think, 15 to 20 minutes to go, just to kind of give him a rest, and just to kind of not risk any re-injury and stuff. So good to see that he came out through the game. As a non-owner, he finished on 117, which is pre-updates less than Gutho, who I went with. So I don't know if I'd like to claim that as a victory. It doesn't quite feel like it, but he was amazing. He scored a try of his own, had a hand in, I think, 3 others as well. So he had a massive game, 117 points, and a lot of people, I imagine, would have captained him this week. So very, very big score from him. Daly Cherry Evans also scored a double, and he had a hand in a couple of tries as well. So 113, a really, really big game from him. Again, we're seeing that with Tom Trbojevic in the back in the Manly Sea Eagles team. The whole team just lifts. So we can see DCE, Ruben Garrick, all these kind of attacking players, even like Jason Saab, who also crossed over for a try. They're all starting to get more attacking stats and become much more relevant Supercoach options. Cherry Evans is hard, given that he's playing at halfback, and it's really hard to break into that Cleary and Sam Walker combination. But very, very decent pod if Tom Trbojevic is in the side, but again, very hard to get him in. Ruben Garrick is actually showing to be a really great pickup for that mid-range centre wing. Apologies to one person who commented saying, is Garrick a good option? I kind of said, probably not, because he's probably just going to get goal-kicking stats and tries, and that's about it. But, with the Sea Eagles putting this many points on with Tom Trbojevic back, this game and also last game, he's definitely looking like a decent pickup, actually. So apologies to you, sorry, he was a good pickup. So again, 89 from him, very good. Josh Schuster with 67, he's looking amazing. He actually conceded a couple penalties just to end the game. He was looking at about 72. There was that decision I mentioned about, Connor Watson versus Josh Schuster in terms of selling to Jake Simpkin. Now, Jake Simpkin, he scored 41 and mainly all in base, but he didn't look amazing. I mean, to be honest, the whole Tigers team didn't look amazing, so for 173k cheapie, you will take 41 points. He did only play 70 minutes. I think the last 10 minutes he was just kind of getting a rest, and Moses Mbai came onto the field and replaced him there. But, playing 70 minutes is pretty good sign, given that he played the full 80 last week. But, there's always a bit of a concern, I guess, with the Tigers. They've been really, really poor the past couple of games. Well, they've only won 1 game out of 7. And we've seen that, Jacob Little, who we didn't think was doing that badly, actually got dropped by Michael Maguire. So hopefully Simpkin, the same thing doesn't happen to him. That does potentially put a little bit of doubt, but I think he's still a fairly safe pickup next week when he'll go up in value by a stacks load. Aside from that, on the Manly side, Jason Saab, who I mentioned, is crossing it for a try, getting the 38 points, very kind of what you'd expect out of him. He just scores a try and he still only gets around the 30s. But again, Tom Trbojevic is the star of the show for the Sea Eagles. On the Tiger side, Luciano Leilua, who I mentioned, is looking their main threat. Nofaluma, who I did actually bring in this round, he scored the 45. He just didn't look like he was able to get any hint of it. Cheekham just kept running the ball and Neville was really passing it out to him, so I was getting a bit frustrated watching. Obviously, this round with that Pappenhausen trade, I was either doing Nofaluma in for Tessinu or Tino up to Tevita Pangai Jr. So obviously Tevita Pangai Jr. got 100 and Nofaluma was only about 45. So at the moment, that wasn't really the right call, but Nofaluma I kind of got as a long-term play. 45 to be honest, without being able to get any real attacking stats. He got a line break assist for Luciano Leilua at one point, but that was his only main attacking contribution. So a 45 from a centre wing, I'll take that. And hopefully the Tigers are able to kind of find him a little bit more. He was playing on the left side again today, and hopefully he can just get some more tries down the line. Stefano Oitumanu and Dane Laurie only getting 27 and 26. Yeah, not what we would hope for. I think Oitumanu and Ryan James in particular would have been 2 guys played very heavily this week, given the late outs of Tohu Harris and Takayaho. So again, 27 is not amazing from him. I was hoping for maybe a try or something, but yeah, 27, we'll just have to cop it. And Laurie, 26, that's his lowest score of the season, but I wouldn't be too concerned. It's probably it's the first blip, I guess, on his scores this year, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. And really, there's not too many other fantastic centering options at his price, so I think he's still okay as a hold. And I guess for James Roberts, Jimmy the Jet, I think I didn't get him to begin the season, and thank God, because he's not really done that well. I think a lot of people will be looking at him like Jimmy the Jet out of my team. Scored 17 points, just had a couple of errors, just doesn't look like he's made for it at the moment. So I don't know, we'll see if he gets maybe dropped down to reserve grade. But yeah, if you've got him in your team, I mean, I don't know what his value is at the moment, but he's probably still just dropping by bucket loads. So yeah, I think the sooner you can get rid of him, the better, because he'll be just hanging around there, giving you these 15 to 20s, and it'll be like an auto emergency score nightmare. So the second game on the Anzac Sunday was the Sydney Roosters taking on the Dragons, winning this one pretty comfortably 34-10. So I was pretty happy with that performance. I'm a Roosters fan for any of you that don't know, so in the end I was pretty happy with how we finished that game. Sam Walker obviously was a bit of the hero once Tedesco went off with that early HIA, and obviously doesn't really need to be said too much. I captained him. You can see him down there at the bottom with the little goal shading, 10 points. So I got a total 20 points for Teddy, which really is a blow. I think the big question will be what to do with him. Look, my early thought is, that's another big head knock that he's had in recent times. He had one obviously last year against Mike Sevo, and he had one during the Origin as well, which was at the back end of the 2020 season. So obviously the Roosters are very cautious with their own players when it comes to managing injuries, etc. So we don't know whether he will actually miss any time, but given that Origin is coming up, he would miss a couple of games there as well, and his break even is going to be soaring through the roof, and he's probably going to be losing about 50 to 60k after this week, which really is a big blow. But I think, yeah, Tedesco to Turbo, if anyone hasn't got Turbo already this week, probably looks like the number one trade that I'm going to see this round, given how Turbo performed. And to be honest, it probably means I'll have to miss out, at least on the initial price rise, for like a Jake Simpkin or a Josh Curran. But given the fullback, and we saw this week how many fullbacks scored big points, it really is a position that's really valuable to score a lot of points. So I think Tedesco to Turbo will be a very popular move. We'll have to kind of wait and see on news on the extent of his injury, but yeah, that's probably going to be a likely move for me moving forward. But Sam Walker, can we just talk about him? What a legend. The guy loves a long cutout ball, but he can pull them off, and 113-point game here was really, really special. He scored a try, had a hand into it as well, and he had the goal kicking, which really was able to boost up his points. So he's looking like a definite play in your 17 in easier matchups. It was only really that game against the Storm where his output was limited, but anyone who versus the Storm basically has low scoring games. So Sam Walker, very happy to own him and very comfortable to play in my 17 each week. A couple of other decent performers here. Joey Manu was able to get a try, which bumped up his score, probably his first kind of respectable score that I've seen in a while. But Tupanua and Collins had really good games as well. Tupanua obviously scored a try as well, and I mentioned that about 340k. He was looking like a good sneaky pod player in your second row forward. He's gone down in price quite a bit. Weren't likely to play Origin, so he's got some coverage. The Roosters do buy in round 13, so they won't play that, but you'd expect over that Origin period he would miss any of those games. So definitely a decent pickup during that time, and he showed again that ability to get attacking stats, and he does very heavily benefit as well, playing alongside Sam Walker, who will hopefully set him up for a few more down the track. Tupo also having a good score of 72, scoring a try, so another good game from him, another good player to keep an eye out in that kind of pod centre wing territory. And Angus Crichton kind of ticking along with a 63. He hasn't really been pushing more into those kind of 70s and 80s that we were hoping for, and I got rid of him a while ago when he had that 1 week suspension, and there's just been no time for me to bring him back. But to be honest, I haven't really been punished too heavily in trading him out, and in all honesty, that actually enabled me to get David Feeder, so I think that trade has done me pretty well. But yeah, at this point in time, I'm not really seeing any rush to bring him in myself. Obviously, if you've got him, you just hold him because there's no reason to sell. He's not done poorly, but he hasn't done as high as I would have thought. On the Dragon side of things, not many real standout performers here in terms of Supercoach. I mean, Tarek Sims had another big game, scoring a 98. I think he had a game a couple of weeks ago now where he scored like 100 plus, where he scored a double. So a big game from him again, but I don't really think he's going to show the consistency worthwhile to bring him into your teams at the moment in second row forward, which is a really stacked position too. And apart from that, McCullough had a steady game at 63, but the Dragons really fell away in the second half of this game, so I'm not surprised to see that their attacking players didn't really score that well. Dufty had a hand in Ravalawa's try. Even Ravalawa himself, he scored that try and he got 27 points, not that many. And Lomax, only the 23, really disappointing from him. He performed well against the Roosters last season actually, so I think a lot of people might have jumped on him hoping for the same, but it just wasn't quite there for the Dragons. They started the game pretty positively, but they really fell away in the second half. Even when the Roosters had 12 men, they really seemed at times really on top. Now, the Dragons obviously had their own sin bin of Jordan Pereira with that hit on James Tedesco. Really is going to be a big controversial talking point, I think, out of this game. I mean, it's really hard to justify it. It's hard to justify how to justify the decision of, like a sin bin versus a send off. Obviously the referee doesn't know that Tedesco is going to fail his HIA. I think when you find out that that player, especially an integral one like Tedesco, has failed his HIA, then it's really hard then to think that, oh, Pereira shouldn't have he should have just been sent off, right? But the referee doesn't know that, so I can kind of understand the sin bin, but, you know, Tedesco was falling as well, so I think that probably did help, you know, Pereira, and that it wasn't a send-off. But yeah, I'm sure he'll probably cop some kind of a suspension potentially. But yeah, there's a bit of inconsistency, I think, in terms of how this is kind of, you know, flagged. You know, Radley made contact with the swinging arm last week, so did Hetherington. So I think this is definitely going to be a big talking point. It would be nice maybe in SuperCoach, whether maybe this is me just being emotional about my captain scoring very poorly. But I don't know, maybe if your captain gets a failed HIA and it's because of foul play in their own mind and the 18th man has to come on, maybe the 18th man can take the rest of your captain's points. I don't know, that'd be nice. But yeah, we'll see about that. That's probably just me running on emotion, but who knows, we'll see. But yeah, in the end, pretty comfortable win for the Roosters. So the final game of the round was the Melbourne Storm taking on the Warriors at Amy Park. Again, Storm taking this one out very comfortably, 42 points to 20. The Warriors were able to get a couple of tries to end the game, but they were merely consolation, and the Storm had this well wrapped up to early in the game. You know, the first half was Jerome Hughes. He was running the show without Pappenhausen. You know, he had 4 try assists, I think, a couple of line breaks as well. So he had a monster score of 124. I'm sure any Cam Munster owners, I'm not a Cam Munster owner, but I'm sure a lot of them would have been like, can you please send the ball to the left? You know, it was all going down the right side. Jerome Hughes was doing well, linking up with Nico Hines as well. He had a very good game filling in at Pappenhausen, but you know, he's one of those guys who, when he comes in, he performs very well. Like, he's a very capable replacement for Pappenhausen, but he just won't get the minutes to get really worthwhile getting into your team unless it's kind of like these 1 to 2 week punts, you know, over the origin periods, etc. So maybe keep that in mind if you are looking to invest in him. But you know, in terms of reliability of starts and minutes, it just won't be there for him. But a very good game nonetheless. Adokar obviously scored a double, so getting to the 105 points, big game from him. Reema Smith also had a pretty decent game, scoring 83, and Munster 73. You know, very, very solid. Again, he's kind of, it's surprising. I mentioned it repeatedly that he hasn't really shown these big upside games. He even had the goal kicking, but he did miss a few, which probably, you know, subtracted a few points from him. But you would have thought potentially, like, I definitely tipped him as a captain, don't get me wrong, thinking that with that goal kicking he was really going to have a big game. And you'd think, oh, Storm scoring 42, surely Munster with goal kickings on for 100. But it's one of those games where I think, you know, the first half was going down the right side. Munster was able to set up Adokar for one of his tries and might even get a try contribution, I think, for Adokar's second. But yeah, so 73, you'd obviously take that if you're an owner, but you're probably hoping for a little bit more from him. And Christian Welch was the only guy I had in this game with a 56. It was pretty steady. Hopefully he might get maybe some offload upgrades to kind of tick me up to the 150 score. But again, he's not really doing anything wrong in my opinion, and he's probably just going to be a hold for me up until around the origin period. Harry Grant, very interesting, only scored about 28. I wasn't able to catch this full game. I've just been able to only watch the highlights. I'm not actually sure why he only scored so low, whether it was his minutes were down, but that's definitely something I'm going to have to take a look at. But pretty surprising, you would think that in a game where the Storm score 42 points, both their hookers, like Harry Grant, Brandon Smith, they combined for 50 points. It seems crazy, right? But that's just the way it went in this game. On the Warriors side, very, very interesting kind of team lineup there now. So I was listening on the radio and I heard Bailey Sirren in a halfback, and I was like, wait, what the hell? And I don't know much about the background of these Warriors players, so I don't know if he's had a background playing in the halves. But I was like, isn't he a back rower? And he's playing a halfback. It was crazy. But Reece Walsh, who I have heard about, you know, young prospect who they got from the Broncos, and from all reports, he had a really, really good game. I watched a couple of the highlights where he was able to get a try assist, and apparently, you know, had a nice touches where he, you know, forced some dropout and stuff. So again, he looks like a really good you know, future for the Warriors when Tuivasa-Sheck leaves. So they're probably locked up already, their fullback. It does make you question, I guess, the Broncos, that I think Sam Walker, Jake Simpkin and Reece Walsh are all young Broncos products. I mean, if they had all three of those guys, you're looking at an amazing spine. But anyway, I'm not going to comment further on that for poor Broncos fans. But yeah, all reports, he had a very good game. I don't know if I'd bring him in necessarily. I don't actually know what he's priced at. I imagine maybe the 173k. But I think, you know, if you're looking to, you know, swap out Teddy, I'd go to your turbos. You know, I think you really need to go for your guns in that position. And Josh Curran, you know, 48 points, looking the goods, but that sin bin was crazy. I watched it in slow motion as well, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Apparently, he was sin bin for, you know, shoulder charge, but it's just head-to-head contact. I couldn't believe it, and I think Again, this is going to be one of those really big talking points coming out of this round, but I couldn't really see how that could have been a sin bin. It was literally just a head clash between the two guys. I mean, unfortunate for Jennings that he had to leave the game after that, but just purely accidental in my opinion. And apart from that, not really much else I think on the Warriors side to comment on in terms of SuperCoach points. I mean, Tohu Harris would have been probably the most popular Warriors player. He was ruled out for this game, and that was due to failing concussion protocols during the week. So definitely something to keep an eye on, I think, moving forward, to see how he kind of pulls up and if he's available for next week too. But Kevin Marlowe scored a hat-trick as well, scoring 93. No Fusatua playing in this game, so he's just sitting there rotting away on my bench center wing, not doing anything for me in terms of cash generations or points, so he's just staying there for now. But yeah, and all in all, I think a pretty comfortable win for the Melbourne Storm. Alright guys, that is the end of the video. That is the roundup number 7. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that and hopefully had a better score than me this week. Let me know in the comments below who you guys captained and what your final score was, and I really hope that none of you listened to me too well about captaining Teddy, and you all went your own ways and got like your Fafitas or your Turbos or your Guthos, you know, so hopefully you guys all did really well. But yeah, if you guys liked the video, would really appreciate a thumbs up, and definitely do please consider subscribing. I'll do roundups throughout the season and more content on team lists, you know, trade targets, so definitely want to miss those, so definitely consider subscribing. But until then, see you guys in the next video.